I think it's interesting that where it says he's been in that condition for 38 years, there's only one other significant time that 38 years is mentioned, and that's in Deuteronomy chapter 2. And
Right.
that's
Verse
from the
14.
time of the crisis with the spies at the border of Canaan till God gave them the final command to go into the promised land was 38
Right.
years.
So it was the end of their probationary period.
That's right, yes,
And so this is, again, why this is very important. Because,
yes,
again, it's the only other place 38 years is mentioned in Scripture. So you're dealing with the judgment of the living or the end of a probationary period. You're dealing with an appointed time.
yes.
And so, again, this idea that the angel went down at a certain time or an appointed time to the pool is connected to the idea of a judgment process happening at the end of a probationary period. That's why, again, the verse makes absolute sense. So there's
Which
this
then,
man.
which
There
then
was
ties, by the way, that then ties in with Revelation 4 and 5
Right, that's right.
perfectly.
That's right. Now, notice it says when Jesus saw him lie there and knew that he had been there a long time. So, how did Jesus find out he had been there a long time?
like the father told him,
Well, actually, the idea is that he's investigating.
investigative judgment.
Yeah, and then he chooses the worst case, right? So, why is he choosing the worst case?
Demonstration.
Yes, if he can heal the worst, then what's he telling everybody else?
He can heal them too.
Yes, that's right. So again, this is a judgment process. So God is shining light, and so he picks the person in the worst case scenario, the person who, from all human perspectives, deserves it the least, and he's going to heal this person, and that by that he's declaring that he can heal it. He can and he's willing to heal anybody and everybody if they're willing to be healed. So again, this is a judgment process. Now, back to the angel troubling the waters, you'll notice it says here in verse 6, it says, when Jesus saw him lie, he knew he had been there a long time. He said to the man, wilt thou be made whole? So you can imagine here's Jesus, leaning over this person and asking him if he wants to be made whole. So Jesus is the angel. He's come down from heaven and now he's troubling the water. He's introducing something to this person's mind that this person doesn't or can't comprehend. By the way, he's going to speak to him 3 times here. And actually, the first time he speaks to him, it's only 3 words. In Greek, that's only 3 words. Will you is one, be made whole, become whole. And the idea here is that he's introducing a new thought into the mind of this person. And if this person by faith will take hold of that truth in his mind and then grab by faith, take hold of it, then that truth could set him free. It can make him whole. And so you see the impotent man, notice his response.
I have no man.
So he has the victim mentality of our day, right? He's the victim. There's nobody to help me, poor me. And then, so first of all, the problem is somebody else because they won't help him into the water. And then the other part, the people are the problem because they get in his way when he's trying to get in the water. So this man, he's a poor victim. It's everybody else's problem. It's not his problem. Everybody else is the problem. Of course, that's why he's not being made whole because he's not acknowledging that it's his own mind. It's his own fears. It's his own shortcomings that are keeping him in prison. And he's been here for 38 years. Kind of like us, we go to church every Sabbath for how many years? Are we being made whole? Are we still imprisoned by our own issues? And so Jesus doesn't even address this, right? He just says to him a three-part phrase: arise, take up your bed, and walk. And what's important here is that when he's saying arise, what he's saying is that you need to change your mindset. right? Rise means to awaken in your thinking, realize what is in front of you, right? And then the idea to take up your bed, that's the exercise of your will to act, and then to walk is to call your faculties into function based on the right exercise of the will. So you see, arise deals with the mind, taking up your bed deals with the will, and then walking is calling all of your faculties into use. That's the three angels' message. And it's the process of his being restored to wholeness.
I like the I like the third thing he said, because he let him know why he was in that condition. He said, "You're made whole. Sin no more, lest the worst thing come upon you."
Yeah, well, that's the third part, right? So, but notice the man is immediately made whole. So the idea is when we arise in our minds to the truth of the gospel, that God can make us whole and that we need to be made whole, and then we exercise our will, and then we call our faculties into right use. That's the process of God restoring us to wholeness.
Mhm.
So by the way, this is the judgment process. This is what the three angels' messages are all about: restoring sinners to wholeness.
Mm-hmm.
So then he answers, right? Now he deals with the whole idea of him being cured, and then it's the Sabbath day. By the way, it's very interesting. We know that the judgment process at the end of the world is going to involve the Sabbath. And strangely enough, we tend to think that we're going to be on the right side of the discussion because we know what day is the Sabbath. But in fact, in this story, the Sabbath is the center of the issue, and the religious leaders who know what the right day is are on the wrong side of the Sabbath issue.
Interesting.
Isn't that strange?
Yeah.
So those of us who think we know because we're on the right side of the Sabbath issue may be in the greatest danger of ending up on the wrong side of the issue because we think we know. So again, by the way, Jesus tells him to take up his bed and walk. So this is the angel from heaven, and what's he doing? He's troubling the waters. He's a troublemaker. He knows darn well that if he tells him to pick up his bed and walk, he knows it's going to cause a ruckus. Because Jesus knows that the Pharisees believe you're not supposed to be carrying anything on the Sabbath. So here's the angel, and he's purposely troubling the waters again. And why is he troubling the waters this time? Because he's trying to break the religious leaders, their false, twisted concepts of wholeness and holiness and what it means to be right in terms of external behavior to being made whole on the inside, right? So he's actually trying to destroy the Babylon, the false religious ideas of these religious leaders who think they're right. So that's why he's causing this trouble.
They're the ones clamoring to be first.
Yeah, yes. Right. So the Jews therefore said unto him that was cured, "It's the Sabbath day. It's not lawful to carry your bed." So he answered and said, "Well, he that made me whole, the same said to me, take up your bed and walk." So I'm just doing what I was told to do by the guy who made me whole. Right? So it says, he that was healed did not know who it was, for Jesus had conveyed himself away, and a multitude being in that place. So then here again, verse 14, it says, after Jesus finds him in the temple. So what's going on here? How do you find somebody?
You investigate.
You have to look for them. This is an investigation. And so here he is in the temple, and guess what? Jesus is going to cause trouble again. This angel is troubling the waters again, for the third time. And he's going to, how is he troubling the waters this time? Well, he's going to say what? Look, behold, you're made whole. That's the first message. Sin no more. Stop sinning, or something worse will something worse will happen to you. So you see this again, the three parts of a message, and this message is causing trouble even in our church today. There's people running around in the Adventist church saying that you sin, you have to keep on sinning, you can't stop sinning. Well, is that true?
No.
Well, Well, if that's true, then Jesus is lying to us, isn't he?
I for nothing.
Because what does Jesus say in verse 14?
And no more.
And no more.
He says, you've been made whole.
Yeah.
So therefore, sin no more. Now, if you're telling people, remember, if Jesus went to the people around the pool and they were impotent and they weren't healed, and you said sin no more, well, then that would not be a correct message. You don't tell broken people to stop being broken. No, he says, now you've been made whole. Now sin no more. So you'll notice it has to be the right process. The three angels' message is the first angel's message has to be first, second angel's message has to be second, and the third angel's message has to be third. And if you change the order, then you distort the gospel. If Jesus walked up to the guy at first and said, stop sinning, then this would not be a gospel story. So Jesus, here's again, you see the angel coming down, troubling the water, and what he tells him, he's telling him, because not only does he want to be free, but he's telling others who are trying to understand this, that if they're made whole, they too can be made free, set free. Now, what's interesting here is that the man himself, he departs and he tells the Jews what? Jesus made me whole. So, by the way, this is the guy himself reflects the three angels' messages. The first time he reflects the eternal gospel is when he actually arises, takes up in bed and walks. That's the first angel's message. The second angel's message from this guy is when he carries his bed and he exposes all the Babylon, the false religious ideas of the leaders. And then his third message is he goes around telling everybody it was Jesus that made me whole. Well, isn't that the third angel's message? Isn't that the message we're supposed to be sending to the world? Jesus makes us whole. Only Jesus can make you whole. So this guy not only experiences the three angels' messages, he actually demonstrates in his life the three angels' message. And so it becomes a judgment process for the leaders of the religious leaders in the house of God, the temple. They actually are seeing the gospel, hearing the gospel in Jesus, seeing the gospel actually transform someone's life, and then they're hearing the proclamation of someone that's been made whole, evangelizing, telling everybody that Jesus makes them whole. And this is the judgment process that's beginning at the house of God. So I think what's amazing about the first part of the story is that Jesus is trying to work in us to restore us to wholeness, to be living demonstrations of the eternal gospel. That's where the judgment process begins. It begins at the house of God.